Oh my God.
So Western funded, capitalist Western funded.
I think a big reason they grew is because they had neoliberal capitalist institutions. I think that's a big reason they grew. I'm sure part of it. I'm sure part of it is Western funding, but I think part of it is just that they had better institutions. They protected property rights. But
you know that that's a very strategic political place that we did what we did, and then in turn funded to lead to the outcome that you're talking about.
There's no success of capitalism ever that could convince you because you think every success of capitalism is just because of Western interference. Like, I understand. No, I get it, dog. Good one.
The study's coming from a fucking market-based society. Fucking
so Eddie, so there's no study I could ever send you from a market-based society that would. So there's no evidence I could ever send you from anything in a.
Listen to me. It's pick and choose, okay?
In
Under
private
a
sector,
market system, why private sectors would operate better?
No, in Vietnam, I'm asking.
Better investment.
In Vietnam, Okay, wait. In Vietnam, please tell me. In Vietnam, shut the.
Private and state expenditures, dude.
And the private ones are more productive. I'm asking, what about the global market system? Makes it so that the private sector is more productive. What about the global market system?
Nonfon, which one would attract more investment?
If you want to help me continue to produce content, liking and subscribing is greatly appreciated. Also, make sure to check out my Discord server, linked down below, where you can also find my Twitch, my Kick, and my Twitter.
Especially in the 80s and 90s, but
yeah, it was the 80s, man.
Not
Everybody was doing it.
Yeah, but it does not absolve them of pedophilia,
for sure.
right?
No,
like,
for
let's
sure.
be real
For
here.
sure.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I mean, you know, obviously, if Trump did do that stuff, that is, well, ironically, that's actually probably one of the least bad things that he's done in his second term. But
pedophilia is bad, but also fascism is horrible. Yeah,
I would say that. If we just want to be pure utilitarians, the USAID cuts.
I was gonna say, like, just mathematically, I think technically that would happen.
That is one of the worst things that has ever been done in history.
Oh my God. This is look, I'm not even going to have this debate with you guys. I would love to debate this another time, Pathfinder. It sounds like you want to go. Sure. USAID was just real quick. USAID was a executive order, which I guess ended up being a like an actual law.
Yeah,
that was to influence for political reasons. Sure, they were giving people vaccines, shit like that, right? It was life-saving treatment.
Sure, they would save like 20 million lives.
It was for political reasons.
I don't care.
Right? But they were doing that. They were doing that so that other countries would not turn to another ideology. So how do we know that ideology, the other ideology, was not gonna strive for better outcomes for a human society? And one of them
why
weren't
they doing that before?
One of them is China,
because we've seen examples of China getting involved in these countries, and it is worse than U.S. involvement.
No, not to a percentage, dude. Brother, I knew this was gonna happen, dude. I don't want to do it now. We could talk about it another time, Pathfinder.
All right. Well,
we could do it another time.
We'll have we'll have a stream or we'll debate that, but I'm gonna go.
We'll do it. I'm down. Pathfinder, I'm gonna get. I saw you gave me a friendship follow. I'm gonna follow it. And your Pathfinder what on YouTube?
Pathfinder 415.
415.
Yeah, Nonfon, sorry for wrestling this stream out of your control.
Free content. Let's fucking go. Let's fucking go.
It happens, dude.
It happens. Sit back and fucking listen to the podcast, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's free content, dude. All right, it was good talking to you guys. I'm going to sleep. See you later.
Yeah. All right, brother, take it easy.
Peace.
Even if do you think, like, does China even have an equivalent of USA like ID? Like, I know they do Belt and Road stuff to fund infrastructure, but like, do they even have an equivalent of like? Do they even have like food? Do they have an equivalent of like PEPFAR and like food aid?
They don't.
They might have food aid.
That was the soft power. So Belt and Road Initiative is soft power. They and it is right.
I agree, but I'm just asking, like, do they have but the stuff I've seen from Belt and Road
much more advanced,
is mostly
dude. Like they.
Well, no. So again, the stuff I've seen from Belt and Road is like mostly like funding infrastructure, like funding dams.
But infrastructure saves lives, dude. It creates development.
I agree, but I don't think it.
Yeah.
Might probably not as many as fucking PEPFAR did. I would guess.
Well, this is the difference we're arguing is that America is much more developed than China. Obviously, China developed around the 70s, 80s. That's when they started getting to be internationally, politically, when it comes to soft power influence in the world, right? In the world stage, America obviously has much more of a, we're already ingrained into the world. So obviously, for sure, if you get rid of USAID, you're gonna have this blowback, of course, dude. I don't disagree with you guys, but what is the cost effectiveness of once you get rid of this and you have these countries being able to develop without the measures that America wants them to develop for political reasons? What type of outcome would they have? You know what I mean?
No, the last sentence about what is the cost benefit analysis of the development of them if they didn't develop with the America
because America wants them to develop in a certain way, which is the neoliberal ideology. Let's be real here.
Based all the evidence says that's good.
But you agree with that. I do not agree with that, and we're going to go by the measures that you're going to talk about,
I have evidence,
and the measures that I'm going to talk about.
No, but look, I have good evidence that, I have a lot of studies that say, it seems like these neoliberal institutions are actually really good for growth and actually really good for,
you're gonna cherry pick. I know Nonfon because me and you fundamentally disagree.
Wait, do you have Eddie?
You're gonna bring up growth. You're gonna bring up purchasing power. I'm gonna bring up healthcare. I'm gonna bring up state measures.
State measures. I would assume state measures are always going to be
minimum wage. The
minimum wage is not at all minimum wage is not a good wage is not a good indicator of how successful a population is in general. But regardless, health outcomes are better with economic development.
Okay,
that's what.
How can you? Okay, now, but let me ask you a fundamental question. How do you know that that's not just because America is much more developed than China? What if America was just as developed as China and was able to give the Belt and Road Initiative much more better measures that would lead to better health outcomes by all the measures that you're talking about because they were more developed?
What would that look like? What I'm claiming is that neoliberal. What I mean.
We're gonna disagree on this, dude.
No. Look, what I'm claiming is neoliberal institutions. So things like property rights.
Right
things
now, because they are the most developed countries, brother.
No, but I don't care. It wouldn't. Even if China was the world superpower and was the most developed country or whatever. If they imposed non-neoliberal institutions on countries, I would expect the non-neoliberal institutions.
How do you know this?
Because it seems like we have good evidence that neoliberal institutions just create better opportunities for growth. I have studies on this, so I can send you. But you're not going to care.
Okay, but I'm not going to care, dude, because I fundamentally ideologically disagree that growth is the only thing that you should be.
I don't think it's the only thing that matters, but also if you look at HDI, economic freedom is correlated with HDI as well, and that includes healthcare outcomes.
Okay, Nonfon, we could have this debate another time. Are you gonna end your stream or are you gonna?
No, I'm gonna keep streaming for a little bit. So PPG, I'm just so curious. Do you have evidence that socialist institutions are better for health outcomes? There might be some evidence of that.
Yes, health outcomes, but overall, I would say outcomes. But then that's what you're gonna say. Well, no, I have these neoliberal measures. Yeah, we live in
is growth a neoliberal measure?
Our global system has been longer enforced by laissez-faire capitalism than socialism, right? And whenever a socialist country tries to arise, they are neglected, they are fucked with, etc. Right? So when you look at this tampered data, you don't think that you're gonna come up with an outcome that says that you're just better?
I don't know. I don't think there's any data ever I could show you that could convince you of anything. I think you're basically immune to it.
Because I'm an ideologue and you're an ideologue, dude, and you have your ideology.
No, I think
this has to do with ideology, right?
It does.
True.
I'm not. I stayed in the base of realism as far as I have to, dude, and I know that American market-based societies have been more in power than any other side. This is the difference. You could say this about slavery, right? Market system-based societies, when slavery was much more of an economic, system in the global order. had better outcomes than market-based societies. They just so happened to.
I don't know. I don't think that's true. I think it's probably true that market-based societies saw higher growth than a lot of slave-based societies, and that's why the market-based societies won out. Because markets are generally just really good at minimizing dead weight loss.
Could it be that the global hegemons at the time, fucking Britain and in Europe, were just happened to be market-based societies, which then in turn implemented, their ideology on the rest of the world.
What do you think was responsible for the growth in like Britain and the US when we were going really fast, like during the Industrial Revolution? Do you think any of that was like markets?
America grew its back both on Industrial Revolution and slavery, dude. So I don't know what you're talking about. Right, you couldn't have the Industrial Revolution without cotton from the South, right?
What the Industrial Revolution also, like I would say, was probably partly caused or enhanced by market institutions, right? I think that's probably a factor.
Okay. Okay, so I wish you have Kairos' fucking number?
Oh my god.
Kairos doesn't talk to me anymore, dude. He bans me.
I'm gonna get Kairos. I'm gonna try to get Kairos in here, dude. You know what Kairos would say? Kairos would say some shit like, "Yeah, that's why communism is inevitable. We moved from these systems that one elevated the other. That's why you're starting to see these egalitarian forms of systems start to arise from a pure market-based system."
Okay. I think you.
Do you wait? Hold on.
Like what I don't like about Nonfon is that he looks at particular data at a certain time and says, "This is the way to go. This is the way it is." When there was slavery markets,
that's not the only thing
they were still markets, but there was slavery against market-based systems, traditional capitalism. There was many periods where slavery had better outcomes.
Okay,
that's why you look at first of all a lot of these things are looking at like relative growth rates, right? So it'd obviously be unfair to say that one country that like starts ahead, has better outcomes than another country that like is starting behind. So that's why you look at the relative. That's why you look at the relative improvements. So a lot of these studies are looking at relative improvements, not just like the absolute improvement.
You could say this,
but again, I think it's likely.
Kings.
Wait, hold on. Shut the fuck. Shut up. I think it's likely. Now, I don't have evidences on hand, but I think it's likely that strictly market-based societies probably did have higher relative outcomes compared to slave-based societies. I think that's probably why the market system won out in the end, right? And we moved away from slavery.
Okay, but why don't you make that same argument about, say, socialism?
Because we don't see better outcomes in socialist countries.
Because we don't see better outcomes now?
Because we don't see higher relative growth rates. We don't see higher relative improvements in health outcomes. We don't see higher
power structure, dude. See, we're never gonna agree with this shit.
Well, that's because you're talking about two different things. He's talking about economic
overall outcomes when we have a market-based society.
No, let me explain it.
Yes.
What Nonfon is referencing is he's talking about the growth of the economic sphere relative to the outcomes for the constituents.
Patrol, obviously, a lot of America is in finance now in the service sector, but that doesn't.
Which implements a more moral system.
I don't think that changes anything.
Putting aside
what country is socialist and to what degree makes
like
markets everywhere?
Or expansion of that sector.
PPG would say China's socialist.
Innovation.
I think we would say Cuba's socialist.
There's many factors that capitalism does better than socialism.
Wait, if you agree with me, then why are you arguing this with Nonfon?
Hold on.
That I explained to you.
There are some factors that capitalism, obviously, with slavery, dude, right, against capitalism. I'm pretty sure if you cherry pick some instances, you will find some measures that are just better than the free market capitalist system, dude. But that's what Nonfon is doing. And you have a much more ingrained society. Through many measures, did our political system change? You had uprisings, you had anti-slavery movements, etc. Dude, you had democratic in Britain. The reason
baseball, Marlon, let's go.
A slave society.
I'm the only. You can pass with me.
Was a couple of fucking intellectuals that influenced the British government. Right, and that's what I mean. It's Nonfon is making it seem like, no, wait, it's just better outcomes. No, there are many factors that implement to what you're talking about, dude.
My claim is that generally we see things like economic liberalization, things like trade liberalization, things like free market institutions, things like a protection of property rights, tends to lead countries that have better health outcomes, better growth rates, lower poverty, things like that. That's my claim. I don't see any evidence you've really presented to the opposite. You just kind of say, actually, I think it's complicated because...
What is the... again, see, this is like the problem with fucking Nonfon, dude. Where am I going to get this fucking evidence, dude? Go to a fucking... No, wait, hold on. Go to a non... Right? There's evidence that refutes that minimum wage does not cause economic harm. It costs benefit when you increase the minimum wage. And then you argue different because there's other studies, right? So where am I going to go get this study that socialism has better outcomes? I got to go to China? I got to go to China, dude?
No, I mean, there is actually one study. There's actually one study that you could cite, but it's a pretty flawed study.
I was actually going to bring this up.
Bring it up.
Okay, so I'm not going to bring up the specific study. I'm going to ask instead, I'm going to give you a little bit of a hypothetical.
There's so many factors that intertwine with what we're talking about is my fucking point, dude.
Okay, PPG, I understand. What I'm saying is, let me ask you this, PPG. Do you think that despite there being economic studies that show in some specific, even while niche fields, they have provided better outcomes in regards to their capitalist counterparts in socialist countries in regards to innovating certain sectors of the economy, while generally speaking falling behind them in terms of average outcomes?
This is the problem with us. You see what it's like? This is where I don't agree with this right now, but this is where people will tell you, well, why have an economy? Why can't we just be a full-blown egalitarian society?
Wow.
Do you think that profit drives innovation?
No, you see what I mean? You see what I mean? Like, look at the factors that you guys are talking about and say, well, when it comes to our neoliberal outlook or market-based outlook on society the way it is now, well, this is the better outcomes. Well, no shit, dude. Well,
okay, no. PPG, I think you're misunderstanding.
I don't think you understand our claim at all.
Yeah. So I think you're misunderstanding PPG. So let me elaborate a little bit. What we're specifically talking about is using a market economy to be able to
Bob Marley
economic
second Bob Marley W hit the tower. What the fuck?
Example to
let's get a fucking twerk break for that one.
Benefits that are given to the constituents. When we're talking about this, we're talking about the fact that it seems that generally capitalists
why can't we just not have the economy?
Have a system in which profit is incentivized to drive innovation. And this is why I asked you the crux of the argument. Do you think that profit drives innovation or no?
Fundamentally structured economy with a political outlook which prioritizes profit.
Okay, yeah, I just said
globally.
Okay, oh my god.
Globally, globally.
My claim is that system leads to better outcomes.
Like, okay, if you say, hold on, this is like saying, like, if we cut off Cuba from the global economy, they're gonna suffer, obviously. And obviously some fucking commune.
I mean, well, hold on. Here's the thing, PPG. Go, PPG, right? PPG, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up, PPG. Here's the thing, PPG. I can send you a synthetic control paper that shows the primary reason Cuba is not, lacks development or whatever is not because of the embargo, but because of the socialist institutions. Do you care at all remotely that there's a synthetic control paper?
Dude. Please send me that paper, please. Please, go ahead. Wait, you think, okay, so wouldn't it be to the cost-benefit effect of the American capitalist system to lift the embargo and let this rival ideology fail so that they can turn the people and say, look at your lives, dude, you guys are horrible. Why would you keep the embargo in Cuba?
Well, we want to keep the embargo in Cuba for mostly, like, political reasons, right? We don't want, like, it's...
What do you think that is, dude?
I just said it's like political. We don't like Cuba. We want them to change before we integrate them into the global economy.
So wouldn't it be listen to the study that you're bringing up, dude? Wouldn't it be the cost benefit of the capitalist political system in America to lift the embargo and let this ideology have worse health by all metrics of what you're talking about? fail.
Wait, PPG, what do you think my claim? Wait, PPG, what do you think my claim is? What do you think my claim is?
Your claim is Cuba has now dog shit. How can you measure this, dude? What is your luring neoliberal institution telling us that Cuba has worse outcomes because of their ideology? I'm sorry, I'm not gonna believe that.
You're not good. I simply don't believe it. Okay, my claim is that the reason Cuba lacks growth is not primarily
I don't believe
because...
it's that you're obviously going to be biased.
Okay, what? How am I? I'm citing a paper here. Like I'm like
not you, the study, dude.
The study. Okay, that's true. Wait, what do you haven't even looked at the study? Which, to be fair, I haven't read the whole study, but like I.
Okay, if I read the whole study, it's gonna say shit that's gonna be cherry picked. It's gonna say, "Well, look at this, look at that. Oh, it was because of this and innovation."
I bet
a very new no, because the study's coming from a fucking market-based society. Fucking
so Eddie, so there's no study I could ever send you from a market-based society that would. So there's no evidence I could ever send you from anything in a.
Listen to me. It's pick and choose, okay? Pick and choose, okay? So you're talking to a left winger, dude. If you have, I'm sorry, I don't know how to tell you this shit. If you have a study like the study that I told you, the Nobel Prize study, $15 minimum wage study, the minimum wage study, obviously I'm going to say, well, that has actually that's actually
the only minimum wage study that matters, and none of the other ones that shows that reduced employment matter, right?
Well, there you go. You're making my fucking point. You're making my point for me, dude. You're not gonna believe that fucking study. You don't believe it. You don't believe it, do you? Right? You don't believe it. The Nobel Prize study. Yes.
I think I'm not convinced one way or the other in Card-Kruger specifically, but I think there's mixed evidence for the minimum wage. So like I'm not totally anti-minimum wage because the evidence
so you don't
for it is
believe
mixed.
Great.
What do you mean I don't believe it? I said, I'm not sold one way or the other. I've seen critiques of it, but I like there were responses to the critiques. I've not really read the responses to the critiques, so I don't know to what extent I believe in Card-Kruger specifically, but I do believe that there is decent evidence out there that sometimes the minimum wage does not increase unemployment. But I also believe there's good evidence out there that in some cases the minimum wage does increase unemployment. We just saw in California, there was a study that came out that showed that the fast food worker minimum wage increase probably led to about 18,000 jobs being lost. Like, I think that's,
Yeah, but higher wages, which then in turn has cost effect for what?
Wow, that's crazy. I never considered that. We're disputing whether or not minimum wage has an effect on unemployment.
But you're picking your own. You just
switch to another benefit. How am I picking and choosing?
What if those? I just cherry pick the shit that you like to cherry pick.
I'm not. How am I cherry picking? What?
Well, in California, what is the problem? Affordability, right? If you have higher wages, you could pay your rent better. What if this gave people?
Wait, what the fuck are you talking about, PPG? We were disputing. Hold on, PPG.
I'm literally doing what you're doing.
No, you're not at all. We were talking about whether we were talking about whether evidence from a market-based society is valuable, and you said, well, I could find, I do think some evidence is valuable because this study said that minimum wage didn't increase unemployment.
And then I said, you gave me this is what we're never gonna agree. This is your fundamental ideology. Nonfon. We're just gonna disagree.
Okay, but you don't have a disagreement based on anything.
I believe that we can have a different economic system that does not have to be this way. Fundamentally, that would be much. Wait,
why the fuck? Why are we pivoting to that? Why are we pivoting to that?
No,
you're pivoting to this too.
I'm giving you the overall outlook of what I'm saying, and you're bringing up these studies. In a neoliberal developed,
oh my God,
global order that is gonna bring up your studies, dude.
Okay, what do you think my claim is about minimum wage and unemployment?
I don't know. You said that there was 18,000. You said that in California, minimum wage workers. Minimum wage. We passed that law, and we had unemployment of 18,000. But there's evidence to show that people were just leaving out of the state. So how are you not determine that?
What? My overall claim about this specific thing is that there's mixed evidence about the effect a minimum wage on unemployment. And I don't have a super strong position on it because, like I said, I haven't read Kruger. I haven't read the response to it. I haven't read the responses to the responses to it, right? So, like, I'm not sold one way or the other.
We're going to go on forever for the rest of our lives.
No, but here's the fundamental thing. It's like, for whatever reason, you, despite definitely not having read Kruger or the responses to it or the responses to the responses, somehow have a strong opinion on it. Just because it won a Nobel Prize or whatever, or its authors did.
My opinion, dude. You want to hear my opinion? I think that you impose your ideology in the society, and you obviously prop it up by all measures. And there are many measures that you could use and that I could use.
What measure do you want to use?
That's how a society works.
What data do you want to use?
What data am I going to get in the United States, Nonfon?
I'm just like, if we're trying to determine whether or not like Cuba has better outcomes because it's socialist or not, like what data should we look at?
Cuba has a less mortality rate than America.
Like infant mortality?
Yes, and higher life expectancy.
So part of the reason they seem to have it,
less medical debt. Less medical debt.
They probably have less medical debt, I believe that. But so part of the reason that they have lower infant mortality is probably because their statistics are not the most accurate thing. So there does seem to be evidence that.
Listen to what you're saying. You're making the same fucking argument I'm making, which is always bullshit. Don't worry about it.
How am I? So you okay? How am I making the same argument you're making? What do you mean?
Your argument is that their statistics are not that accurate because of blah, blah, blah. Okay, says you.
I have evidence for that. Do you have evidence that the paper I cited was misleading?
What is the fucking evidence? Do some neoliberal
okay.
telling you that.
True. So I linked you. So I admit it, like, I'm not like super well read on this topic, but like I linked two things. I linked one, there's a fact sheet I linked to you that has collects a lot of different studies about the effects of capitalism on growth. Two, I linked specifically the paper about Cuba. I linked a Twitter thread by it from its author, from one of its co-authors. And then there's another, I haven't linked this to you yet, but there's another study I can cite that looks at the effects of the so-called Washington consensus on growth as well. And like that, these all seem to like have positive outcomes. So.
Literacy rate. You know what happened in Kraft? You know what happened in 2002? America started cracking Bush. Started cracking down. And there's videos of him doing it. And policy. Bush started cracking down harder on Cuba. They were actually going to lift the embargo. If El Gore would have won the election.
Guess what? Wait. The study doesn't even look. The study looks at Cuba. The study, I believe, looks at Cuba from 1960 to like 1980, before any of these changes with Bush. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, between that time period, literacy rate, hospital beds per citizen, purchasing power, social safety net, life expectancy.
I'm not convinced.
Cuba was fucking smoking the United States. Well,
so
you're not convinced. So you're never gonna be convinced.
No. Can I finish my? You don't. Okay. So one, I'm not convinced those wouldn't have gone up more if they had capitalist institutions. Like we do just generally see, like I said, health outcomes.
Well, okay, hold on. I'm not convinced that all the metrics that you have sent me wouldn't have improved under socialism. I'm not convinced.
These studies, okay, retard. The thing that you cited was that after Cuba, hold on. The thing that you said is that after Cuba turned socialist, X increased, like health outcomes increased, okay? The things I cited are studies by economists that say we compare, either they do, there's a few different methodologies. They'll either say, we compared how quickly health outcomes grew in capitalist country versus how quickly health outcomes improved in socialist country. So it's a direct comparison between the two things. Or they say, we compared how well health outcomes improved in a capitalist country or a socialist country versus how well we would expect
first world capitalist country. Obviously, they're gonna.
Are you retarded? Are you retarded, man? Can you?
Healthcare incomes, dude. Are you fucking listening to yourself?
Okay, for one, when we're comparing the relative like growth rates between two countries, that's obviously going to account for that, right? Like we're accounting, like we're not just going to look at which country has higher life expectancy. We're going to look at which country did life expectancy grow faster in, right? Yeah. So that accounts for if a country is further behind. Guess what? Some of the data I cited looks at that PPG.
No,
so
what do
so
you
a lot of
mean?
these things
We're
already account for
talking
that. And then
further behind
two, we have synthetic controls where we try to develop basically from donor countries, from similar countries, what we'd expect like the outcomes to be if like, for example, a country hadn't turned socialist, and we measure it compared to the counterfactual where they hadn't turned socialist. Like we have synthetic controls and we have other things to account for this. Like there are different ways to do these types of causal inference.
My chat is flaming you, dude. I'm gonna take a piss. I have to take a piss.
God.
I'm literally gonna piss my pants. I have to. Kraft is in there. There's a lot of people. If you go to my chat, they're all talking shit. Kraft is not even
I have it open.
Leftist, dude.
I haven't
He's
really
a liberal. He's a fucking liberal, dude, and he's talking shit to you.
That's great. Is he even talking to Cuba? Cuba is definitely not some sort of shithole, but it had problems. And yeah, if we trade with Cuba, they've done better. I agree with that. I just don't think that's the primary thing responsible for Cuba's lack of development. That's an argument for liberal free trade. I love liberal free trade. It's still not some kind of communist utopia either, but they're getting better. Results with less resources. That's efficiency. What's the evidence for that at all? America cancer. Like I'm not at all convinced that's the case. I don't think there's evidence for that. I bet if you looked at productivity in the U.S. versus Cuba, or productivity growth in the U.S. versus Cuba, productivity growth would be higher in the U.S. than Cuba. I guarantee you that's true.
I mean, you wouldn't even need to go that far as to compare Cuba to something like the United States, because you can literally look at the Cuban GDP per capita, and I believe it's like 60% below the global average.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, like they're
it might have something to do with the fucking embargo.
Jesus Christ. No,
PPJ, I already told you.
Russia,
there's not good evidence that's true.
Russia and Iran are some of the highest sanctioned countries in the entire planet.
Yeah, but they have much more. Sure, they're much more sanctioned, but they have much more resources that can send the fucking black market or through fucking loopholes to fucking mitigate that damage. Cuba doesn't.
Yes. Cuba does have this. In fact, we've seen this happen multiple times with Cuba. Cuba actually has increased
China's geopolitical standing. I mean, Russia's geopolitical standing is next to the fucking second strongest global economic superpower. No wonder they are not heard by fucking American sanctions. Are you fucking kidding me?
Wow.
This is your argument?
Again, my argument is that they are above 60% below the global average for like GDP per capita. And in addition to that, the vast majority of countries that invest in Cuban infrastructure happen to be China and some of the Chinese allies. Specifically, like if you look up studies specifically regarding the health sector in Cuba, a vast majority of the government subsidies that came from foreign investors in Cuba were Chinese investors. So, like, we can see that there are foreign investment interests in Cuba that are happening on behalf of domestic like agencies, in which are still not providing the same level of outcome in which they are in other countries where like the resource limitation is relatively close. I'm sure, and I could probably look this up. I don't know it off the top of my head, but I'm sure you could find a country that has a relative, like to Cuba, relatively close import and export as well as GDP for their economic status, and simultaneously be above the per capita GDP by Cuba drastically. How would you determine anything else other than the economic status of Cuba to be the determining factor for that? Just out of curiosity.
Incredible. Are you just like, I don't think he's muted. Like, I don't know if you can hear us though. I don't
know.
No, I heard him on his stream, or heard us on his stream. So I don't know. I think he's owned. This is why statistics sucks, because depending on what you value.
I heard what you said. You're fucking stupid, and GDP growth depends on development.
GDP growth depends on development. Okay, good to know.
GDP per capita is different than GDP.
Explain yourself. Go ahead.
You want me to explain why GDP per capita is different?
Yeah,
than
go
GDP?
ahead, please. By what metrics?
They're completely different.
By
metrics.
what metrics is GDP?
Okay, dude.
They're
Okay,
completely
a fucking
different
country that has been in embargo by many economic factors is obviously gonna develop slower.
I agree.
Okay.
I don't disagree with
Oh
the
my
notion that
God,
they're going
bro.
to have stunted
Well, then what
development.
the fuck is your argument, you fucking dipshit?
That the bigger factor is the socialism.
No.
Why would it be the socialism if you let
Okay.
them?
Because we have good reasons. We have good reasons in theory.
I don't even
We
have
have.
to make this argument. China has much more state-run enterprises
Wow,
and
that's
state
crazy.
measures into
That's
our
crazy.
economy,
That's
and it's
wow.
one of the
That's
most
crazy.
fastest
I never
developing
figured.
countries in human fucking
That's true.
history. Why? I don't
That's
have
crazy.
to agree with you.
Okay.
We also see examples of growth that's.
Is
Wait,
China
hold on.
China
socialist?
has
Yeah.
metrics that are socialist? Yes.
Crazy.
So, okay, tell me what socialist metrics China has. I
They're
know what
state
they are.
enterprises.
I just don't think you know.
Okay, they're state enterprises.
State enterprise. Give me an example.
Huawei.
Okay, so how is Huawei socialist?
Huawei is state-owned, state-run, and domestically run. They're like inside of the government. It's very collectivist.
That's statism. That's not socialism.
Okay, sure. Statism could be a form of socialism.
I don't disagree with this
I know.
notion. Can you show me an example where?
Dude, shut the fuck up, man. You guys are fucking...
Well,
okay, wait, hold on, real quick, PPG. PPG. So
conclusion of what you're saying. I think he walked away. But anyways, the point that I was going to make was that the statist society within China and how economic opportunity zones, specifically the ones that operate with some level of socialist or communist thought, is actually a sort of misnomer in a lot of regards. Because the rate of independent business ownership by people who are, again, in China, you're not even allowed to independently own a business, so I don't even know how you'd compare them. But in the United States, the rates of independently owned businesses by the people who operate said businesses is only on average 3 to 4% lower than what you see within the Chinese economic autonomous zones. And in these economic autonomous zones, they make up for less than, I think, about 3% of the total GDP of China, whereas in the United States, they make up around 4.5%. Meaning that on average, the independently owned businesses in China are actually less likely to be profitable relative to state enterprises, which are not independently owned and are like owned and operated by the state. My problem is, if you want to argue that China is communist or like the Chinese implementation of communism or socialism is differentiating from the traditional like Marxist labor theory of like socialism or communism, then sure. But if we're going to divide what socialism or communism means to include parts of capitalism that are simply more liberalized, the problem is you run into countries like Norway, etc., which have much more socialized economies than what you see in the Chinese state, and these are not considered socialist by like most
because they were politically okay. I want you to go back to what you said about.
Wait, hold on, real quick. No, fuck you. Fuck you.
They were in a different political circumstance, which is what you dipshits do not take account.
Okay, what is the political circumstance?
Wait, hold on, real quick, please. Please, number one, PPG,
America would allow America allowed Norway to have its socialist society for political reasons. Where there was in Latin America, I'll give you an example. Latin America, where they were trying to do what Norway did, their countries got literally fucking either invaded or fucking cooed out of power. Allende, Arbenz, a whole bunch of Latin American.
Yeah, no, I've heard it. I've heard it all. I've heard it all before.
No, this is
I understand.
No,
but real quick,
this is the
I understand. No, I agree with some. I agree. Some of those things happen. I don't care. But right now, so I want to go back to China real quick because I think you said dumb shit on it. And before we transition to the U.S. cooling all these countries, number one, we've also seen countries grow as fast, if not like faster than China, and they're capitalist countries. Places like Poland, places like
which one? Japan.
I believe Poland. I believe Poland has.
Who were funded by Western
That's so true, buddy. Okay, anyway, I don't care. Hold on, real quick. Can I finish my thing? So number one, we have seen cases where countries have grown about as fast as China. I believe.
Please.
Oh my God! Hold on, I'll pull up data in a second. But number one, so we do see examples of that. I will pull it up in a second. We also see cases. That's so true. I believe. I could be wrong. I could be wrong, but I believe Poland. That's so true. I believe Poland also experienced about as fast as GDP per capita growth as China has. I could be wrong, but I believe that's true. But yes.
Why was Japan and Korea?
Regardless.
Oh my God.
So
Western funded, capitalist Western funded.
I think a big reason they grew is because they had neoliberal capitalist institutions. I think that's a big reason they grew. I'm sure part of it is Western funding, but I think part of it is just that they had better institutions. They protected property rights. They had good systems that led to growth. Secondly, shut the fuck up. Secondly, you would have to show that China would not have grown faster if it was a capitalist country, and I'm not convinced that's the case because there seems to be evidence the state owned a synthetic control paper. Cite a synthetic control paper, please. I beg of you, do a synthetic control. Anyway, so you'd have to show China or show the opposite I'm about to say. I'm sure there might be some out there, but you could also show hey, state-owned enterprises grew faster in China than private industries, but it seems like the opposite's the case. It seems like a lot of times state-owned enterprises in China actually have lower. It seems like shut the fuck up, PPG. Shut the fuck up for a second. It seems like the state-owned enterprises in China and just generally we have evidence from Vietnam too. State-owned enterprises just generally have lower productivity than a lot of these than the private sector. So it could be the case. So it could be the case that China would have actually grown faster without
the bullshit that you're saying.
Okay,
let me debunk the bullshit that you're saying. So obviously, in a neoliberal global market order, most privatized industries will grow faster than state-run industries. It depends on the state that we're talking about. And hold on, if you have a they call themselves communists. If you have a socialist state that will utilize the private for now, because the political order of the global order is used in this particular way. Obviously, you will use state enterprises when you need them, with a market where innovation doesn't matter, where you have a clock, etc., dude. You will have private enterprise. This is why China's better than us, and they're gonna beat us eventually, dude. They have three methods of doing things: state-run, privately run, and fucking collectives, dude. And they utilize them as one political state, as a socialist state, so they can pull 800 million people out of fucking poverty.
Okay, I think we've also seen a pretty comparable number of people.
This is what I mean, dude.
Real quick.
Your argument is that in this particular instance here, private industry work better than a state-run fucking industry. Okay, dude.
It's not PPG. It's not just in this. It's not in just this particular incident. It's that a pretty good amount of evidence suggests that just state-owned enterprises in general across countries. Shut the. Oh my God.
You don't think?
Do you think? Wait. So I'm so confused. Is your claim that if we had a. Hold on. Is your claim if we had the socialist world or whatever, then suddenly we would see state-owned enterprises have better outcomes than private institutions?
Okay, you will slowly start to see a much more egalitarian world.
Okay. Do you think productivity would be higher amongst state-owned enterprises or private enterprises?
Okay.
Because productivity is a big.
Hold on. In a world where 10 million people starve to fucking death right now, today, dude, right? And production goes to a certain sectors in a certain country for political reasons. Why would if productivity went down 4% of what it is now, but yet we were able to feed everybody in this world, would that be bad for you?
Okay, dumbass. there are obviously cases where I'd say the trade-off between productivity and egalitarianism or whatever is worth it.
Outlook,
so
Nonfon,
they're obviously shut the fuck up. Wait, PG, can I please can I speak 2 sentences, please? Thank you so much. So obviously, like, I think the welfare state is good. Now, I don't actually think that the welfare state is like that negative on productivity insofar as it's funded by good taxes. So I think there could have been cases where like it's somewhat positive to neutral on productivity, simply because like if workers are healthier, they can actually work more, right? And insofar as you provide a more stable life for people, maybe they can actually work more and come up with new ideas. So, but my claim is just that generally, like, it seems like there's a lot of state-owned enterprises that perform worse than private sector alternatives. They're less productive, and we have good reasons in theory to believe that why that would be the case, because a lot of times they suffer from a lack of incentive to be productive.
Okay, man. Well, okay. I think I talked about that. What can I say?
Okay, crazy. Wait, also, just real quick, I believe, like, I can probably pull up data on this too. I believe we've seen a similar number of people pulled out of poverty in Indonesia, and I think Indonesia is also
in another country that they facilitated genocide first, and then you had Western funding. Yes.
I would also like to point out that China, when they lifted people out of poverty through the
Nonfon
security program.
Nonfon, you know what happened? You know what politically happened in Indonesia? Wait, does he know?
Since what, in 1965 or whatever, when we... Yeah, no, I'm aware of the communist genocide. We killed a bunch of people. By the way, this is looking at 1984, which I don't know when we stopped interfering in Indonesia or whatever. But
you know that that's a very strategic political place that we did what we did, and then in turn funded to lead to the outcome that you're talking about.
There's no success of capitalism ever that could convince you because you think every success of capitalism is just because of Western interference. Like, I understand. No, I get it, dog. Good one.
Okay, well, okay. This is why I said from the very beginning, you're gonna have your ideological. You're gonna have your ideological ideology, and I'm gonna have mine.
I have much better evidence for my ideology than you do yours. That's the thing, though.
Good. Under your terms, and look, I'll give you this. Under your terms in this system, sure, man.
What terms?
Why not?
What do you want to look at? Wait, what do you want to look at? Please, just tell me something you want to look at.
What do you want to do, dude? I don't know.
I mean, I'm saying you keep saying like your terms, and my terms are like GDP, like HGI, like GDP per capita, like health outcomes.
Order that can give us the better outcomes that you're talking about with better studies.
Do you think
I'm just fucking dumb fuck neoliberal online who thinks he's fucking spewing facts, dude?
I would hope that we would have evidence that socialism is good before we transition to a socialist society, because I feel like if your claim is that we could only
against that ideology, sure, man.
Yeah, that's so true, buddy. Quick. That's so true. But look, again, so I don't see by what mechanism like socialism would suddenly start performing better or like state-owned enterprises would suddenly become more productive if there were just like more state-owned enterprises.
Okay, well,
what political interferences make it? Wait, PPG. What, PPG?
Which one do you want
what in Vietnam? PPG. What in Vietnam makes state-owned enterprises perform?
Market order.
Can you listen to my fucking question? In Vietnam, what makes state-owned enterprises in Vietnam less productive than private enprises in Vietnam? What is the determining factor there?
Do you guys see politically where he's?
You're gonna answer my question?
Like the point that he's putting me. Is the sky blue or is it black? Obviously, the sky is blue under our terms, dude. Sure.
I'm so okay. What is responsible?
Nonfon?
What is responsible for the fact that productivity growth in
under
private sector
market system? Why private sectors would operate better?
No, in Vietnam, I'm asking
better investment
in Vietnam. Okay, wait. In Vietnam, please tell me. In Vietnam, shut the
private and state expenditures, dude.
And the private ones are more productive. I'm asking, what about the global market system makes it so that the private sector is more productive? What about the global market system?
Which one would attract more investment?
From who? Foreigners?
Yes.
I presumably the firms that are more productive in the first place. So the private ones, but you're obviously, I think your causal inference is backwards there.
I
but
mean,
also, there's probably
the that you made. Sure, they are. But why? They get more return on investment. Their money doesn't have to go to
because they're more productive.
Okay. Why would somebody go to it? The whole point of a fucking state-run fucking corporation is for a variety of reasons. They have different political fucking what they have to worry about, right? Political outcomes, right? Oh, we gotta worry about the Chinese people, we gotta worry about the Chinese government, etc. We gotta worry about this infrastructure, we cannot pollute. Obviously, the private sector will let you do whatever the fuck it wants.
Wait, PBG, what you're saying can be a factor. So it is the case that some state-owned enterprises have like non-profit maximizing goals, but most of the studies I'm citing are going to account for that, obviously, because that's obviously true. And economists know that's true. So that's why they look at other. That's why they try to account for that.
Sure.
Okay. Wait. So your claim as to why state-owned enterprises in Vietnam are less productive than private enterprises in Vietnam is because private enterprises receive more foreign investment. That's you think the primary reason?
That's a big reason. Obviously, if you have a fucking market that operates more in the global system, obviously that's going to benefit more from trade, from etc. Obviously, it's going to have better outcomes than a fucking state-run enterprise.
Okay.
You do acknowledge that we have had a market system for thousands of years, right?
To varying levels, but yeah.
We have. And it's like saying, well, why don't you take out your lung, dude? Because your lung has developed in your fucking, or some bullshit like that. I don't know how to, that's not a good
here's the thing, BBG, it's like, I think there's pretty like plausible explanations for why state-owned enterprises would perform like less productively than private enterprises, because they don't necessarily have to maximize profit, because they may suffer from principal agent problems, because there may be like corruption or whatever in non-transparent democratic countries, but like like your explanations are like so far like out of left field, and there's no, and like I have evidence for my explanations and you don't have evidence for any of yours, so I'm I'm going to side with mine.
Hold on, Nonfon. I'm going to give you a craft who is very smart, way smarter than me. He's going to give you a question, and I'm going to raid into you, dude, because I do have to go to sleep. I have to go to work, but I'm going to give you his question.
Sure.
So, there we go. This is basic econ. He had to have learned this. Ask him if in the 1890s, a newly formed Germany needs private business or publicly funded. It was the occasion. Exactly, dude. To build locomotives.
Locomotives. Train.
What?
I don't know. Like, I think there's
more efficient and effective.
I don't think there's mixed evidence as to like whether private trains or government trains run better. I don't know. Like I don't have a strong position on it. I have to read more, but it does make sense to me. Guys, guess what? Even a neoliberal, it's not 100% opposed to public ownership all the time. So like it makes perfect sense to me why something that would be like a natural monopoly may sometimes actually work better as a government-owned institutions. I recognize that.
Natural monopoly?
A train?
No. Well, that's okay. Why do we need the
locomotives
for production? Okay, but people have to get to work. People have to do shit. You think that's natural? No,
as in like there are high barriers to entry.
That is a circumstance, right?
Okay. So
it's okay.
In markets where there's a high barrier to entry and one firm can provide the good at a lower cost than multiple firms, like we call that a natural monopoly. I think things like a train
metric that you use, dude.
Because in the case of natural monopolies,
cost, but it has better outcomes for more people.
There are cases where that might be worth it. There are cases where it might not be worth it. It just depends on what those outcomes are and how big the cost is.
Okay, guys, I have to go to. I have not slept in the last 48 hours, dude. I'm going to sleep legitimately. Have a good night, dude. Craft is gonna go into your stream. I'm sure he'll argue the shit with you.
Okay, that's great. Can't wait.
A mod. I was gonna mod. The fuck, Ray host, right?
Yeah. /host Nonfon 420. Oh yeah, also Bob
What a
Marley. You're
pussy.
right. Positive externalities the private sector can't capture as well. Yeah. Thanks for the raid.
That was the most neoliberal shit I've ever heard. You guys have a good night.
Positive externality.
Have a
Have a
good
good
one,
night, BBG. Wow. Anyway, what's going on with you, Patrol? I haven't been reading chat.
Suck my dick.
420, do you even smoke weed? I don't. Anyway, Maida, I gotta do what I was gonna cover on stream in the first place, which is not that much.
That is unfortunate.
If you want to chat with me live, sub here or go to Nonfon420 on Twitch or Kick via the links below. Once again, please like and sub to help with the algorithm, and consider sending a donation through YouTube Super Thanks to directly support me, and I'll make sure to reply to any question you ask. See you guys next time.